Check, check, check. Hi, my name is Rick Shore and I'm president of Ultimate IT Courses. We're a desktop training company as well as an IT training company. And I've invited you here today to meet Greg Lutes, the president of Lutes Training and Consulting. He's a former colleague, I guess he's a colleague now as well, that does computer training. And he's going to show us how to use Office 365 and Teams for collaboration, and basically to help you work from home, which is really important right now. So Greg Lutes, take it away.
Thanks, Rick. I just wanted to show you a really neat product that is part of the Office 365 lineup, and that's Microsoft Teams. And I'm going to show you here a window. And I've signed into Microsoft Teams. Now, this is the web app. And the great thing is that there's absolutely no difference between the web application and the desktop application. I'll just get this out of the way here. All right. So like I was saying, a lot of times we're having chats, we're having talks, and all that information sits in your inbox. So instead of having those talks in our inbox, we can come here, create a team, and this would be a team where we collaborate, where we share files and get our work done. And part of collaboration, of course, is just posting different conversations. And these conversations are known as perpetual conversations. That means that this conversation never, ever goes away. So if I decide to add, say, another team member, that team member, all they'd have to do is come to posts and read through all the different posts to see what we've done, to see what we've added, what's changed, rather than it being a whole bunch of emails in my inbox. And same with files. See, in a conversation, we can chat about something, or I could attach a file. And any file that I decide to attach, like this one, it allows me to attach this, allows me to work on this file. I'll just close this without having to switch back and forth between all these other types of files, or sorry, all these other types of programs. Another way of sharing files is to actually come to files and upload the file from here. All right, here I'll take a PDF. I'll take a different PDF. Here I've got, here's a zip file on housing price regression. But the point is that I haven't had to email this to you. I haven't had to create copies of this by sending it out to 15 people. You send this out to 15 people and we've got 15 copies. No different than this one, right? Here's a common file, right? Sales, Excel file. I can click onto it and I don't have to wait for Excel to open up. I'm still inside Teams. I'm still working in my team. And the beauty of this is that more than one person can be working here at the same time. But more importantly, what we're not doing is creating multiple copies of this thing, right?
It's too funny. My wife just asked me about that. A document she's working on with somebody else in accounting.
And, you know, with everybody working from home nowadays, you need to be mobile. And this helps me to be mobile and helps me to work wherever I need to work, because I don't need Excel installed. I don't need any PDF reader installed. All of that is installed already inside of Teams. And if these are really, really important files, then all we have to do is synchronize those files. And we'd be synchronizing them to our local computer. So when we don't have a network connection, when we don't want to connect to the office, we have a local copy of all of these files that sit here. And the moment that I do have an internet connection, it synchronizes back. Now, one of the things that you might be saying to yourself is, what about security? What about somebody overwriting my stuff, right? How do we control different versions? Well, all of that stuff, if we're talking document management, that's all done through SharePoint. So this is kind of an odd thing, but when you create a team, you create a SharePoint site. You create a SharePoint site, you create a team calendar, you create a team inbox, you create all these different things just by creating a team. So when you upload files, all those files sit in SharePoint. You don't have to create the SharePoint site. It's already created. There it is, team training. This is our inbox of our conversations. This is the stuff that's shared with us. This is our notebook, our OneNote notebook that we can share with everyone. But more importantly, and the reason that I brought you here was the files. So if we have been editing files, one of the neat things that we can take a look at is the version history. But to manage the files are managed through SharePoint. But by working with Teams, you're working with SharePoint. By working with Teams, you're working with all these other components. If I go into the version history here, I can see all the different versions and when the versions were created. Every time someone makes an edit, it automatically creates a version. And what it isn't is multiple copies of a file. All the versions are contained here. If you're concerned about security, well, you can manage access to the file too. So I can control who has access to it and what they can do. And I absolutely love the little panic button here. So if I've accidentally shared a file, I can immediately stop sharing it.
Wow, that's awesome. We've all done that.
Well, you do. We all make mistakes. Things happen. It's generally not on purpose that I've kind of opened something up to the entire organization, and it allows us to lock things down when we realize that no, this is a bit of an issue. And along that same lines of central information and information being in one spot, you've also got a notebook. So when I create a team, I create a OneNote notebook. And that OneNote notebook could be things like meeting notes. Or we could have a whole other section here, and the section could be on team training. And this is where I can add different pages of tips and tricks. Another page of how-tos. And if I go back to Teams, right, back at Teams, we have a team training notebook.
So Teams it's not replacing Notebook, it's using Notebook.
No, and that's the beauty of Teams. Teams doesn't really replace anything other than Skype for Business. Everything else, Teams becomes a complementary product. It allows you to manage information. It allows you to manage files. It allows you to manage different things that you might be working on, like different projects. Here I've got a project on, training a whole bunch of different people. Well, I can have to-do lists. I can assign different tasks to different people and have a due date and have this synchronized with their Outlook. And not just a to-do list, I could have other buckets as well, like a wish list. And all the while, we can be producing charts and schedules without actually having to create this stuff. All this gets generated automatically. You have to admit it, a schedule is pretty straightforward to do. So in this day and age, a computer should be able to create a schedule for us. And it does. And if you want more functionality, if you want to add any functionality to your team, you're adding tabs. And these tabs bring you more functionality to all kinds of different products in different services. And the major majority of this stuff, it isn't even Microsoft. And I think that's the part that blows my mind. For the very first time, Microsoft is playing well with others.
They're drinking the Kool-Aid.
I think they've realized with Google and other products like Zoom that have come around that they can't rely on the same old, same old. You know, this can't be your dad's office. This has to be something greater than that. And it is.
Yeah, I think the Windows Phone and the iPhone probably taught them a bit of a lesson as well.
Yeah, I think they've learned from a lot of different things. You know, I'll call it like it is. This is Slackware. This is a dead ripoff of Slackware, but the difference is that this integrates with every single Microsoft product that they have, and Slackware doesn't. It's, you know, still a third-party product, and there's a lot of workarounds to work with different things. When it's all Microsoft, it all works. The other problem that Teams helps to solve for me is my files. Okay, yeah, I've got all these different teams and I've got all these files and all these different teams, but where's the file? Well, I come to Teams, I click on files, and I see all the recent stuff that I've been working with, right? All my stuff from all my different Microsoft teams. When I go to OneDrive, right, this is all my OneDrive stuff. So it really doesn't matter where the information is, whether it's in Teams, whether I've been recently working on it, I'll be able to find it. And if that's not enough, there's all these other bots. Like Who. By using Who, I can find out more about different people that I'm working with in my organization. And if that's not enough, I can go to more apps.
Who is not the World Health Organization, by the way?
No, in this circumstance, no. Who is a little bot that tells you who you work with and who they report to and who's responsible for what. And I guess that's, again, just another thing that you can do with Teams is by managing different tags. These have a more common common name. They're called mentions, right? Tags, mentions. So I could create a tag name and say, I don't know. Let's see, call it T4s, right? Right. Who's responsible for T4s? That's Greg. Or I could create another tag and say fax machine, right? Nobody knows what they are. There's this one guy that knows what they are. His name's Greg. So I can get in here and say, yeah, Greg. And create that. But now what I have, right, is I have these two different tags that people can use in the post area. Right, so they could do at T4. Oops. And it knows to message me. So this means that you can set up all these different keywords, and depending on the keyword that they use, the right people will be notified in the right team. It's all about centralization. You're trying to centralize your information. You're trying to centralize your chats, your files, and your meetings. Your meetings are another part of this. If I go into my calendar here, I can see all my different meetings that I have. I can create new meetings just like I do in Outlook. But Outlook also has the ability to create meetings too. If you want a really big production, then you create what's called a live event. And that's where you have a director and a producer, and you've got multiple cameras, and you're flipping back and forth. It's a real production. However, after you're done, all the files, a recording of the live event, everything is found in every single person's calendar. So to find the live event, they just go back to their calendar. And all the handouts, all the brochures, all the PDFs, all the presentations, and a recording of the live event is all found in your calendar. And they keep expanding the functionality of this. The more services and products that Microsoft tends to offer, the more products and services they tend to keep adding to Microsoft Teams. If I go back to Teams here, another big product for them is Stream. And Stream is like YouTube, same idea. So I can post videos, I can create channels, like a help and how-to channel. And then there's all these different videos on how to do different things or how to get help. I'll close that. I'll get out of there. As far as the meetings go, it, works just like everything else. I got the Meet Now button, just like Skype for Business, and it works just like Skype for Business. You can share your screen, you can create a poll, you can share files. The only difference is that when you meet inside Teams, they've added closed captioning. So if you don't want the sound on, or it would be much easier for you to read what somebody's saying, right? You have to think of accessibility as well. All of that now gets incorporated into Teams so that I can actually read what you're saying, and I can read it in almost any language that I want.
That's pretty amazing. I'll tell you, because even with everybody watching so much Netflix now, is you always end up having subtitles on, and if you're watching something Australian, even you're kind of reading the subtitles these days. So it's a really useful tool, especially for watching different languages and translations. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
And I think of accessibility too. Different people that have different visual issues, and now they can actually have a transcript read to them in real time without having to wait for that transcription. They can still be part of the meeting. They can still, kind of understand what's happening, even though it's happening in a completely different language. It's all being translated in real time in their language, and they can participate without having to wait.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's neat little product.
Really.
The chat still works the same. That's no different than, and we'll have to cut that out. Don't go to chat. Go to chat.
Gotta be careful.
So yeah, chat still works the same. I can have conversations. I can send you files. There's these emojis and GIFs and stickers that I never send to anyone. But they're still, kind of good fun. And like I had said before, I can also add different videos from the organization from Stream. There's also the ability to praise different people and send praise to people. Right. So I can see, yeah, Greg, you're a unicorn. And of course, I can't send praise to myself. Unfortunately, that would be narcissistic. There's lots you can do. I can create forms, send you the news, tell you what the weather is. It's insane. And they keep adding more stuff all the time. As far as creating a new team, it's really straightforward. At the bottom, you click on join and you create a team. I've never actually entered a code to join a team because when you add the members, they're automatically added to the team. So it'd be kind of weird that I would ever have the opportunity to enter in a code. But to create the team, it's really straightforward. You see, teams you a lot of times build them from scratch unless you're using the old Office 365 groups. So most of the time, you'll probably be building from scratch unless it's an existing SharePoint site. When you do build it, the sites are either private, public, or they go organizational wide. Now, let me explain these three things because these come up quite often in Teams and in SharePoint. I'll start from the bottom. Organization wide means that everybody in the organization has access to the team and automatically has joined the team. So I don't have to add you as a member. If it's public, it means that you're allowed to join the team, but you're not automatically added to the team. So it could be things like Teams training, help and how to. You might find the team interesting, but rather than automatically assume that you should be part of the team, we make it public and then leave it up to you to decide whether or not you join the team. And private, just like it sounds, members only. So when I make Teams private, only the people that are invited will be able to work with the files, see the team, and be able to work with the SharePoint site. I'll choose private just to kind of give you an idea. And let's do a live demo. And I'll leave it at that. The description is also searchable. So if somebody's searching for the team, this is also added to that search, to that metadata. I'll click Create. It doesn't take much, but eventually the team's created and I can start adding different members to the team. Now, that could be a person or it can also be a group. Every single team gets a general channel. Within the general channel, you can make posts, share files, and you also get a wiki. Don't be alarmed. The files take a while to show up. Well, I wouldn't say a while. They take a bit. So here they're ready. If you want to add any other functionality to the team, all you have to do is add a tab. When you go to the tab, this is where you see all the different things that you can add to extend the functionality of your team. There's a lot here, and this list is always changing. Keep in mind, not all these different services and products are going to stick around forever. So you may want to do your research when you take a look at some of these. So what do you think, Rick? What do you think of Teams?
I think Teams is amazing. I mean, I obviously am in charge of sales and marketing for the company, or not so much marketing now, but I was. And I mean, this type of thing really helps with meetings, keeping things organized. Again, people are just overwhelmed with information. I mean, just phone calls, like you get a phone call or you get an email and you have no idea where it's coming from these days. It could be Messenger, it could be, you know, one of your emails, your personal email. So things are coming from all over the place. So I think Office 365 and Teams can really help organize things and do, it's almost like your own personal SharePoint administrator, secretary kind of thing. I think it's just, it's an amazing tool.
It does. It gives users the opportunity to give themselves their own little corner in the office where they can collaborate and work together. And then when they're ready to share that, it doesn't become a big production for them to share this information. You know, a lot of times we're having to rely on IT way too much nowadays. Everything goes through IT, and that's not really fair to that department. You know, they can't be experts on everything. So what we need are things like SharePoint experts and team experts to kind of give everybody a bit of a hand in the IT department and take some pressure off.
So we have a couple questions if you have a minute here.
Of course.
There's one about OneNote. Just again, I think I kind of mentioned it, is OneNote replacing is OneNote being replaced by Teams? And you had said Note's a big part of it. And, OneNote's really near and dear to our heart because years ago when we worked together, you did a webinar on OneNote, and I think it's up to about 80,000 views now. So it's a pretty exciting product, and I use it constantly. But do you have anything more to say about OneNote and how it works with Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, you'll notice that there's no OneNote 2019, and that's not a mistake. They weren't sure if they were going to continue with OneNote. So 2016 is the most current version that's out there, and that's the one that you install. You'll have to install it separately from the rest of Office. But what they've done now with OneNote is they've really sunk some R&D into it, and they've made it a lot more intelligent. For instance, they built in some AI into OneNote so that hand recognition is much, much more accurate. And starting coming this summer, I believe, you'll now be able to take notes in multiple languages. So you'll be able to handwrite notes in English, French, and Spanish all at once. And as you're handwriting the notes, not only is it translating it, but it's also typing your notes out. So it's just taking that handwriting, running it through optical character recognition, and then translating it into whatever other languages you want.
Wow, I can see that being huge with government. I mean, any organization with translation, but government, especially in Canada.
Yeah, and it's not like, don't think that it's that Google translation stuff. It's a lot better. It's much, much more accurate and more professional than that. So what you're really getting is real AI translation. And I guess what that means is that instead of hiring a translator to translate an entire video or an entire document, you can now hire a translator to kind of go through and make sure that it all makes sense. Make sure that they've used the best wording, that they've used the best grammar. Because, translators are expensive, it's time consuming, and instead of, having to start from scratch, they can kind of go through with a scalpel and just make little adjustments here and there. So, you end up with a better product at a much cheaper rate.
Yeah, and I mean, it won't always be perfect, but at least people get the gist of it and they feel like they're part of it as they go, type of thing, as opposed to waiting, right?
Exactly.
Another question, can anyone create a team or can you restrict it to certain people, groups of people?
You can definitely restrict it. Out of the box, everybody's allowed to create teams, but my suggestion is that you you train and you build team champions so that they're the ones that help to manage the teams, and help to create those teams and run those teams so that general users are left to do what they normally do. And when they have questions or need some answers, they've got team champions that are kind of out there just building stuff, creating and modifying things for them.
Definitely answering questions. You definitely need a team champion. I mean, just being in the training business, it just makes such a big difference having somebody who's kind of the subject matter expert in the office and really, pushes people to use it. They're not afraid of it because they know how to use the tools, but they get everybody, using them, and that's the key.
You got it.
Okay, got one more. How many people can participate in one event?
Right now, the cap is capped at 250 people for a single live event. However, my understanding is that's a moving target, and they will be moving to much, much larger numbers.
All right. Is there a way to be signed into one team and receive notifications from other teams where I am not currently signed in?
Yes, and I would love to show that to you, but I'm not allowed. However, if you look at my screen in the upper right-hand side, it's letting me know that I have 5 notifications from another organization that I'm part of. And I'm part of different teams in that organization. So right now, what it's kind of asking me to do is it's asking me to switch to my other team and show me that activity, because that activity, once I switch to my other team that I have, I can then click on activities and it'll show me those 5 notifications. Right now I'm up to date on Lutes Training Consulting, but I've got another couple of teams that I'm part of, and I know that we've been doing a lot today, so I'm not up to date on those teams, and it's let me know that, look, you've got 5 different activities that is going on. Now, say that somebody, directs something towards you, messages you inside of Teams, or talks about you inside of Teams. You not only see that in the activity in Teams, but you'll get an email along with that. So it's not like I have to stay signed into Teams and constantly looking at Teams to see this activity. I've already got 5 emails that have told me what that activity actually is.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so one last question. This came, let's see, this is a tough one, I think. Are any companies using this to develop SW and write for writing test codes? We're not sure what that means, but for writing testing codes?
There is, it's funny you mentioned that. I've actually had a couple of different organizations recently approached me about how they're using this with software development, using GitHub and a bunch of other resources. So yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff in here, especially if you're coders, because a lot of times your code is blocked sending it through email or with attachments. There's a lot of hassle there, and setting up an FTP site sometimes is also a real bit of a hassle to have to get the IT group involved. And yeah, so yeah, there's quite a few different organizations that I'm aware of that are using this for software development, and they are just loving it.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Greg. Well, we're going to definitely do this again. We'll see what other products we want to talk about. But one thing that we're going to be looking at doing, and we're going to use Greg for this, is doing videos like this for organizations. So it can be pretty specific or customized for an organization. We do, videos that are interactive like this, as well as training, Lutes Training and Consulting, Ultimate IT Training. We can provide these services for you, but until we have another presentation, I want to thank everybody, and everybody stay safe out there.